Hi VC, it's Aaron, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite release in the last few years, and this is the box set, Skid Row, The Atlantic Years, 1989 to 1996. And of course, most people know most of the stuff in here, and this is a great box set. You know, it sounds better than my originals and better than CDs. These records, the pressings are amazing. And I'll have to say, when I first joined the VC, over about a year and a half ago, I've always said my two biggest grails are Subhuman Race and Slave to the Grind, both in this box set. So I got my two biggest grails in one shot, and that's really cool that they put this out. And they're not just my biggest grails because they're a lot of money and hard to find. It's just the music is what really made them my biggest grails. So I love the music so much, and you know, I have them on CD, cassette, whatever, but I listen to vinyl more than anything else. So I really like to have my music on vinyl. And getting this box set was just a real thrill. And, you know, of course they started out with this record here, their debut, Skid Row, which is a totally amazing debut. One of the best debut albums of any band, I think. It's really great. And of course it had the glam metal sound a little bit. They had kind of a street edge to them. You know, they had great heavy songs like Big Guns and Remember Tornado, Piece of Me were great hard rock and metal songs. And then they had the, you know, the big hits like I Remember You, the ballad that was so huge, and 18 in Life, the huge hit, which are more commercial, and, you know, stuff like, you know, where is it? Here I Am, Can't Stand the Heartache. They had kind of a glam edge to them, and then with a little bit heavier stuff mixed in. And that's what made them so cool, is they had that catchy commercial sound, but they also had a kind of a heavy edge, even from the beginning, from this album. And then it really, when they put out Slave to the Grind, this album, it took everyone by surprise, because everyone was expected like a redo of the first record, and it really wasn't. I mean, there's some elements on here that are a lot like the first record, you know, like Quicksand Jesus and Wasted Time, such a great ballad. In a Darkened Room, those slower ballady songs are so good. And Monkey Business is just like a step up from Youth Gone Wild. But what really kicked them off was when they did, you know, the songs like Slave to the Grind and The Threat and The Riot Act and Mud Kicker. They were so heavy. It took the heaviness to another level. And that made this album so popular, mixed in with the commercial songs like Monkey Business, and Wasted Time is such a great song. Quicksand Jesus, I mean, they're all really good. Amazing, amazing record. And, you know, here's what this one looks like. It's got the gatefold. And it only has, you know, it doesn't have Beggar's Day. It's different than the other reissue they did, which I was so disappointed I couldn't get that. But now that I have this, I don't really care as much. So, and, you know, it's got a cool, you know, the lyrics. And the vinyl, you know, they only came in paper sleeves, which I'm out of my MoFi sleeves at the moment. But I will upgrade those sleeves. But the records sound amazing. These sound better than the CDs. They blow out of the stereo, really crisp, great sounding records. I love the sound of these records. And, you know, everyone thought, you know, Slave to the Grind is just, it's a classic. Everyone was in love with it. Everyone still loves it. And it's a great record. So then after Slave to the Grind, they put out Besides Ourselves, which is an EP of cover songs, which is really good. They do Delivering the Goods, and they have Rob Halford on it, singing with them, which is really cool. Psychotherapy, the Ramones song with Rachel Bolan, the bass player, singing, which is really cool. You know, Come On and Love Me, they do Sebastian Bach is perfect for that, the Kiss song. And they do a Rush song, What You're Doing, and Little Wing from Jimi Hendrix. So this is a really good, solid EP here. And that's what it's got in it. And all these records, I have the Rhino reissue of this. It's right up there, and this sounds better. I have the first album right there. That's the original, and this pressing sounds better. That Slave to the Grind is a reissue, and this pressing is way better than that too. And so before I get to the record I really want to talk about, they also put this in here, which I had never owned before. It's another EP. It's a live EP called Skid Row All Access Subhuman Beings on Tour. Pretty good EP, live EP. If it was me, I would have put a few different tracks on it or made it longer. I mean, Slave to the Grind is great on here. And they do Riot Act, which is really cool. And Monkey Business, that's great. But I think they put 2 songs from Besides Ourselves. And this is only 5 songs, so the same 2 songs. Delivering the Goods, which also has Rob Halford, and Psychotherapy. I think instead of those songs, they could have put a couple of different songs from Subhuman Race, which only has the song Beat Yourself Blind on it. And, you know, I saw them on that tour, and I will get to that in a minute, but there's some songs in there that I really should have put on here. But this is really good, too. It's a good live EP. Now, to get to what was my biggest grail, and this album here is my favorite album of them. And people are saying, how is this your favorite record when they have Slave to the Grind? Because Slave to the Grind is so good. And I agree. Slave to the Grind is a masterpiece. Absolutely amazing. But in the same way they took from their first album and they really upped the heaviness of Slave to the Grind and took it to another level, they did the same thing with this from Slave to the Grind. So after Slave to the Grind, they were touring with bands like Pantera and Anthrax and Metallica, and all of that heavy music from them kind of rubbed off on them, I think, and they really went real heavy on this. And there's some elements of all those bands in here, plus they have their old sound mixed in. And this album here is just, it was kind of overlooked because it came out in 1995. So in 1995, that's when all the alternative and the grunge was really big, and the Skid Row type music had fallen out of favor. Even the thrash bands were changing. Like Metallica was doing the Black Album, the Load albums. Megadeth was going into Risk. You know, Anthrax had changed singers with John Bush, and their sound had changed to more of a groove-oriented instead of thrash. So, you know, to me, this is the best metal album of the 90s. And I'm not saying that lightly. I really think that it, I mean, I'll go through this track by track. It starts out with My Enemy, which is a really good, just heavy song, very dark. This is a more mature album. They've matured a lot and got heavier on it. And My Enemy, when I saw it live, he was like going on this big rant about how this is dedicated to Timothy McVeigh, who is the one who did the Oklahoma City bombing, and it's whole big. So it starts out with an angry, heavy, kind of Black Sabbath-ish riffy song. And then it goes into Fire Sign, which is the second song. And that kind of has a Slave to the Grind feel to it. It's got a really catchy chorus with, you know, On the Carousel, through Yesterday, whatever, that chorus. And it's kind of, but then it has these heavy riffs towards the end. You're thinking, okay, it's kind of Slave to the Grind, but that's the thing. It starts out with those, and then it just takes a turn when it hits Bonehead. And as soon as Bonehead comes on, which is it's almost like a punk meets thrash song. It's like if you take the Misfits and mix them with some heavy Judas Priest, maybe a little bit of Metallica, that's Bonehead. And it just is a shock when you hear it. Because as heavy as Slave to the Grind was, there's nothing like Bonehead on there. It's just in your face, like a punk metal masterpiece of a song. And it's real short, like a punk song, really killer. And then they get into Beat Yourself Blind, which is just one of the most amazing metal riffs of the 90s. It's an amazing song. Might be my favorite song on the whole album. It's so good. And it's Sebastian Bach singing on this album just is over the top great. He takes it to another level. It's aggressive, heavy, killer stuff. And then the next song, Eileen, another one of my favorites, which I wish they would have put that song on the live EP, because when I saw them live, when they did Eileen, and Eileen has a psychedelic feel to it. It's not a ballad, but it's kind of slower and psychedelic and kind of not grunge, but psychedelic, sludge, not sludge either, just a really trippy psychedelic song. And it's going through and it's got this really catchy chorus and it's cool vocals. And then all of a sudden towards the end of it, all of a sudden it gets this heavy riff change that just blows you away, and all this trippy, I know what she knows, and it's so cool. And when I saw them live, they stretched that out like for a few minutes, did all this cool trippy stuff, and they could have put that on the live EP. I wish they would have, but still, Eileen is an amazing, amazing song. And after that comes Remains to Be Seen, which that is heavier than anything on Slave to the Grind too. That's just another heavy, like almost thrash-paced song. And then we get the title song, Subhuman Race, probably the heaviest song they've ever done. It definitely is their heaviest song. It's just, it's like an old thrash song from the 80s almost, and with Sebastian Bach singing, and it's just amazing. Subhuman Race, frenetic, fast, speed metal-ish, thrash-ish, really killer song. And they were doing this when everyone was changing and going into the groove and grunge and alternative, and they went to like old metal. Instead of going back to their first album and get more commercial, they went to the opposite side, of the metal side. And then, you know, after that is the song Frozen, which has some like heavyish grunge elements, kind of like Alice in Chains Soundgarden heaviness, but it's not like them. It just has a couple of those elements, and it's so good. Frozen just sticks in your head. One of my favorite songs on here too. And then there's the song Into Another, which is one of their singles, and that was the most like their older stuff. But it's got kind of a darker feel to it. It could have been on one of the first two albums. Into Another would have fit perfectly in there. Probably been a single from one of them. It just didn't do well because it was 95. Everything had changed. But Into Another, it was amazing live. Has a killer riff. And it's probably the most commercial song on the album. And then they go into another blistering heavy song, Face Against My Soul. Oh my God, that song kicks ass. So good. And then Medicine Jar kind of is like a heavier version of Monkey Business in a way, mixed with maybe Mud Kicker. Maybe mix those two songs up a bit and add a little heavier element. And it's just amazing. And then after that, they do have the one ballad, but it's kind of a haunting alternative sounding ballad called Breaking Down, which I absolutely love. And I always thought In a Darkened Room was their best slow song, but after I got into this record, Breaking Down became my favorite. I just love it. And it even gets heavy at the end. It is so good. And then it kicks off with the song Iron Will, which almost has a Pantera groove to it. It's just, and it's heavy as hell. It could be a Pantera song almost, but it's Sebastian Bach singing, and it's just amazing. Just killer groove. And this album, I'm saying it, and I know a lot of people will disagree, but I honestly think this is the best heavy metal album of the 1990s. And I'm sticking to that, even though I might like a couple albums, you know, maybe better, I don't know. But this is the best metal album of the 90s. And there we go. And everybody have a great day. I'm so happy this box set came out. And here's the back of it. There's what's on it. Amazing stuff. It's amazing from all the way through. Everything's great on it. The only thing is I wish the EP would have had more stuff from Subhuman Race. Other than that, it's an absolutely perfect box set. And I know a lot of people don't know Subhuman Race like they know the first album and Slave to the Grind because they were so huge. And everyone, you know, even the thrash people, all those people, go listen to Subhuman Race. Check it out. And the people that like the mellower stuff, I mean, there's stuff in there that'll work for you too because it's still Skid Row. But you know, anyone that thinks Skid Row is too mellow, check out Subhuman Race, especially Bonehead and Subhuman Race, Face Against My Soul, Iron Will. Those songs are like the heaviest stuff they've ever done, easily, and they're just, that whole album's a masterpiece as far as I'm concerned. Best album of the 90s, best metal album of the 90s, amazing stuff. And I spun it like 4 times already, and every time all the hairs on my arm are standing up, I'm just singing along. It's so good. Everyone, have a good day. I will see you later.